I'm Robert Asencio here with my guest, Mindy Figueroa from Latin to Latin. We're here at Miami's Community Newspapers. We wanted to bring a new show to you because let's talk about business opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
We're coming out of COVID. We know that economically, many people have been hurt, but they're incredible business opportunities. Some people have done very well during COVID. Mindy, I'm sure you have been one of those. But let's get right into the meat of things. And then as we move into the conversation, we can talk about, a little bit about you, who you are, but really, let's talk about Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, and the business opportunities between Puerto Rico and Miami. What does that look like?
It's looking fantastic, let me tell you. And thank you first of all, for inviting me. I think this is one of the topics that I love the most. Yes, a lot of people reinvented themselves and pivoted during COVID-19, but Puerto Rico is a market, obviously being Puerto Rican. I made a pledge, and you were part of what we experienced after Hurricane Maria and the exodus of our people coming to South Florida and Central Florida. So I made a pledge to myself that I was going to be able to figure out a way to help the island.
Mm-hmm.
And so a focus that I'm right now concentrating on is in the bioscience sector, working with a company based out of New York that is bringing an innovative test to the island and is looking at the ecosystem of the island in order to not only explore the possibilities of commercialization there, but at the same time using it as a springboard to the United States and then to the world. So it's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing, the ecosystem in Puerto Rico is very open to business. It's not perfect like any other market, but it allows an opportunity to be a microsome of anything from R&D, clinical studies, understanding the dynamics in the healthcare, and then being able to emulate that and use it as a springboard to the United States and to the Hispanic market in the United States.
So you're working over there in the island, right? I mean, you're based out of South Florida.
I'm based out of here, yes.
And you're working over there in the island. Look, for those of you that are just chiming in or asking why Puerto Rico, why are we highlighting Puerto Rico? This is a new show, which I hope to have Mindy on this on a regular basis, talking about opportunities post-COVID, right? We have an emerging economy. What do we do post-COVID? So let's talk about, break it down a little bit. What are those incentives for anybody that wants to start a business, anyone who wants to take a business to Puerto Rico,
right,
or looking for an opportunity just to make more money?
Right.
What are the opportunities?
Well, let's talk about the fact that first of all, it's a U.S. territory. And I'm
Yes.
going to mention that because some people don't understand the political situation and the relationship with the United States over 119 years. So the idea here is that we are operating under the same federal laws. We're operating with obviously state laws or island laws at the local level. So you have the different layers of government and the same currency and all the different protections that you would not necessarily have if you were doing business outside of the United States, in Latin America or in another part of the world. So Puerto Rico about 10 years ago came up with, after they phased out another a tax incentive that was called 936, which brought in a lot of pharmaceutical companies to establish in Puerto Rico, basically creating an amazing ecosystem of 60 years of bioscience and pharmaceutical expertise. And that's important to note because we, after COVID-19, we realized that the supply chain was affected when we depended on China.
Yeah, it was broken.
Correct. So it was like the emperor doesn't have any clothes, right? Seriously. So, there was a whole movement, and it became an executive order during the current President Biden about, made in America. So why not Puerto Rico? We have already all the skeleton, if you will, built in, and we have bilingual individuals with expertise. We have one of the top scientists and engineers on the island compared to the world. So now why not augment that and make sure that we're just doing business with our own people? So that's one of the things that is very attractive. But let me go back to the incentives, to your question. So about 10 years ago, the government of Puerto Rico created Act 2022, which now have morphed into Act
2022 para ahogado en español.
Sí, también 60.
Sí.
So right now that's the new act.
Okay.
And just to cover in general, and if some people want more information, I can put them in the right, connect them with the right people. But essentially, it allows anyone from the United States and actually from other parts of the country to establish themselves an operation in Puerto Rico and export services and only pay 4% of corporate taxes.
Think about that. 4% of corporate taxes.
Right. So think about it. I mean, usually what it would pay here, 25, 30% is a range. So if basically putting 25% back in your pocket that you can utilize for marketing, for market expansion, for more products and services that you need to buy, for manpower and workforce. So that is really an amazing opportunity for anyone to contemplate establishing their businesses in the U.S. territory that has under those
What about
taxes.
resident requirements?
Yes, there's 183 days, basically. So
Almost half a year.
Half a year, and it's not consecutive. So you don't have to be leaving constantly, but you really have to become part of the fabric of the community. It's not something that you just fly in and then leave.
Yeah.
You really have to become. And actually, what have to happen is that is a really amazing, vibrant community. I flew to Puerto Rico last week to participate in an organization with Alberto Bacó, who is a former secretary of economic development for Puerto Rico, and he created an organization called Partnership for Modern Puerto Rico. And in that room, probably about 75 people or so, we were able to really enjoy the conversation with anyone from tech companies to crypto coins, to backup offices, hedge funds, etc., really representing billions of dollars that are represented in Puerto Rico in a way that they still have to pay local taxes. They still have to buy a home. They still have to employ people. They still have to go to the doctors. They still have to go to buy groceries and have other services and enjoy living as part of residents of being in Puerto Rico. So it's a fascinating phenomenon that is happening. I think it's definitely going to have an impact. There are critics to the incentives, like anything, and I think the opportunity that exists is to morph and to continue to calibrate the laws so that it allows for companies to really, if we're going to go under the Made in America, Puerto Rico is a perfect example to do that. But I want to add one more thing. Then what's the bridge to South Florida, right? Why this is important and why we're talking about this here?
Absolutely.
If after Hurricane Maria, we had about 500,000 people that basically were displaced. Not all of them have stayed in the States. Most of them went back. But during that period, it allows Puerto Ricans to also understand that they needed, especially business community, they needed to open up their mindset that the market was not just the island. They can really export all their services to the mainland and to other parts of the world. So then we're seeing Florida is a natural. It's kind of like the next town, like next municipio 79.
Well, it's certainly the closest part to the mainland, right?
Exactly, and more so than what New York used to be. First, the environment and the tropical, subtropical environment that we have here.
Reminds
and the weather.
Us of home.
Huh?
Reminds us of home.
Absolutely, and so you see all that commonality, and we see also the. I guess the buckets of where the concentration is when you go to, I was in Orlando this past weekend as well, Kissimmee, and then Broward and South Florida, you see in the influx of Puerto Ricans coming to open businesses.
Yeah, what's interesting is that, Central Florida, first it used to be Chicago and New York, as you mentioned, right? The destination of choice for the Puerto Rican people who come from out the island. Then we saw that Central Florida became the destination choice.
Yep.
But now we're seeing Puerto Ricans come to the state, and there's about 1 million. Well, of course, we'll know when the census comes out, right?
Close to 1.2 million Puerto Ricans here
in the state of Florida.
Yep.
Probably a second, if not.
It's a first.
The first.
It surpassed New York by maybe 100,000 Puerto Ricans.
Wow, that's big. So I don't know how we tie with the Cuban community, but we're certainly a large number, 1.2 million Puerto Ricans in the state of Florida.
Right.
But the interesting thing is that we know the business owners are coming to South Florida, and what I wanted to talk about is what are those emerging industries that are on the island that match up with South Florida? Because look, we know South Florida, we know Francis Suarez from the mayor of the city of Miami, also with Danilo Levine Cava, our county mayor, and other commissioners and people that are in the know have really been pushing for venture capitalists to come to South Florida
Absolutely.
to expand the tech industry. And we know the debates. We know the debates, those newcomers versus the ones that have been here for a while. And are we being outpriced by those that are coming? But that's an issue that we're going to deal with in other topics, right?
Absolutely.
But what are the emerging industries that we can collaborate with in Puerto Rico versus here? I mean, are there industries that they're being sought after more of desire in Puerto Rico that maybe there's a connection here that you can think of?
Absolutely. I think the healthcare space, I'm very personally involved in the healthcare for the past 15 years. And I think it provides an amazing opportunity. We're working with a company that is actually a Puerto Rican entrepreneur based out of New Jersey, who also has operations in Puerto Rico and is opening operations here in South Florida. And is a platform, is a technical platform to have access to underserved communities. The company name is Oi Health. And, Mario is doing an amazing job, truly, first of all, addressing a community that nobody's paying attention, which is an underserved community, bilingual communities, or only Spanish-speaking community that doesn't necessarily have access to go to see the doctor. So they can do remote monitoring. They can do telemedicine. They can do a particular chronic diseases and so forth. So that's one area that definitely it's really going fast. I think tech companies in general, you have the first Puerto Rican billionaire called Orlando Bravo.
That's big.
It is.
A lot of cereals. A lot of cereals.
A lot of cereals, absolutely. But the fact that he, obviously built his business in the West Coast in San Francisco, started opening different operations, and not only was he part of bringing a solution to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, where he set up a fund for more technology-driven companies, etc. Now he's expanding. He's just opened up offices here in South Florida. I know that Mayor Suarez is very happy about that, but he's definitely opening a presence in Puerto Rico.
You think we can have him on the show? An invite. Please come and join us on the show. We need your talk.
Absolutely. That would be amazing. I'm dying to meet him. But he's someone, a role model for our community. Yeah. And, sometimes people don't talk about that. And they don't talk about the good news and the contributions that we're making in socioeconomics and politics as well.
So, Mindy, I'd like to shift a little bit. So for those of you that are just coming to the show, we're at Miami's Community Newspapers. Once again, we have our amazing producer behind the scene, Tommy Stipp. Mainline Marlins. If you haven't seen it, pay attention to it because it's growing in popularity. It's providing some really good information. And for those of you that are Marlins fans, hey, what better? We have a guy from South Florida promoting what's going on with Marlins. But we're speaking to Mindy Figueroa. Mindy, tell us about Latin to Latin for those people that don't know and how to get a hold of you.
Sure, absolutely. Latin to Latin is a consulting marketing firm. We focus on helping companies that are tapping the Latino market in the USA and abroad develop a strategy and execute a plan of action so that they can have a mutual beneficial relationship, right? A business transaction, whether it's a product or service, etc. But we also help Latino-owned companies that want to go into the general market, and they need to understand how to navigate those waters. We have a big influx of South Americans here in South Florida, and one of the things, and including Puerto Ricans trying to do business in the States, it's important that they understand that the way that they have done business in their country of origin is not necessarily the same way that we do business here in South Florida, but also in the United States. So we help them navigate that, come up with anything from research to the strategy behind it, and then the execution of it. We are headquartered in Fort Lauderdale. We have satellite offices, obviously in Puerto Rico and New York, North Carolina, and now in Kansas.
So if someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can Latin to Latin or L2L with number digit L marketing L2Lmarketing.com. Excuse me, or they can check us, online and so social media.
Yeah, today I went on the internet and I looked up Latin to Latin again. I mean, I've known you for a couple of years. I was really impressed with the new page you have, especially the staff, right?
Yeah.
Who we are.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive. Take a look at it. I invite everybody to go to L2L
Marketing.com, yes.
.com.
Yeah.
So Mindy, you mentioned about the cryptocurrency that's being adopted now on the island. And look, we know that a lot of people here in South Florida had really made a lot of money, and there are others that are certainly beginning to get involved in it. As a matter of fact, Elon Musk, I believe it was the other day that he's announced that Tesla would be accepting crypto. What is it? Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So they had a big boost. Let's talk about that a little bit. What's going on the island with the crypto?
I really, to be honest with you, I don't know much about it, and I want to make sure that I'm providing the right information. But it is a boom. I mean, there is several different players. One of them is Brooke Pierce, who basically have put a stake in the ground in Puerto Rico about the Bitcoin, and he is an evangelist, and he's basically bringing more of. Creating a council. San Salvador already accepted Bitcoin as a way of doing business, etc. I am learning myself. I'm fascinated by it. I understand that it allows people to the democratization of money. It's the way I'm trying to understand how exactly that works. The technical aspect of it, I really don't know. It's something in the cloud. So we'll make sure to invite someone that can talk about it in detail, because I'm fascinated by it and I want to learn as much as possible. Absolutely. But it's definitely bringing a huge a crowd to Puerto Rico. And people are moving to Puerto Rico just on that aspect of the economy.
There's a show on Netflix, and I mentioned it before. Startup. Have you seen it?
Absolutely.
Wasn't that great?
Fascinating.
It's based in South Florida, but it's filmed in Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
Los Caseríos. I saw Los Caseríos,
all
the streets, very reminiscent of San Juan, Bayamón, Carolina, where I used to live.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. If we don't look at opportunities, right, and we don't have people like Mindy on these shows to tell us what are those opportunities available to us, we're going to get stuck, and we're probably going to be clobbered by this economy. Look, I fear. So I was on a. Let me back up a little bit. I was on a conference last night. I was part of a panel, and we're talking about investments or collaboration between Puerto Rico and Miami.
Sure.
And we're talking about, what is the financial future, the forecast of the island economics, right? And we know that during this COVID time, we know that the federal government has probably provided the largest stimulus known to mankind in history.
Yep.
And what that has done, and the intent of that has been to keep the economy afloat. But what's going to happen in the months to come? And that's where I'm really concerned. So I wanted to look at these opportunities, whether it's manufacturing in Puerto Rico or here in Miami, whether it's collaboration between the tech industry and on the island and here, currency. There's really an infinite amount of opportunities for everybody.
So think about this for a second, and I stole this idea from somebody else, analogy rather. Basically, so you have a hose, and push, sprays water in the plants. All of a sudden, you have a fire hose. A lot of infinite, literally, money that between you and I, we're not going to see how that money is going to play out for years to come in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has an opportunity to totally reinvent itself. And Puerto Rico is going to need more than 50,000 employees to go just in the construction and arena because of the way the infrastructure is going to be rebuilt. No matter how many of the existing companies or contractors that are in Puerto Rico, they're not going to be enough to really put up with everything that needs to happen. So what does that mean? It means construction companies from here, from the States, from South Florida, they could do joint ventures with the ones in Puerto Rico to expand into the needs that are going to be needed. So that's one. Bioscience, we talked about it. Energy, right? Right now we went through a transition to privatize the energy. Of course there's going to be critics. Of course nothing is going to be perfect. But like anything, presents an opportunity to open up the market, because now they're competing. They're competing. There are going to be other players that are going to come in and offer a better service or a better pricing. But the electricity in Puerto Rico is very, very expensive. Yeah. So this opens up the market for other players to come in. The other arena is education. We COVID transformed the way that we get educated. So, families are rethinking about that, and that's something of concern in Puerto Rico because we have lost a brain trust of people coming to here. So the ones that we're losing there, we're gaining them here. So imagine that transfer of knowledge and educated individuals. I think the other area that we have to look into is obviously anything with the blue economy. How are we going to utilize the natural resources that Puerto Rico has? Is an island surrounded by water, right? We learned that during Hurricane
Oh boy,
Maria.
did we?
So
And an island with water.
and an island with water. We have the only rainforest of the
Yunque,
entire.
which is phenomenal.
Beautiful, muy precioso, bello, but it has natural resources that we can be learning from it for sustainability. So, the other thing, agriculture. Anything from, Puerto Rico is open for the hemp and cannabis sector, which is, really taking off. So there's so many opportunities.
And I want to talk to you about the hemp and cannabis because, lately, for those of you that don't know, I've started a small company. It's a boutique consulting firm, leveraging my experience in government with my experience in business and people like Mindy collaborators. It's called New Era Alliances. And recently we've been looking at and speaking with people of the medical marijuana industry, but we were looking at hemp. And one of the areas of hemp that very seldom is spoken about is agro-environmental manufacturing as a form to mitigate the damages of hurricanes and environmental sustainability.
Right.
Is there opportunities in Puerto Rico for that expansion?
Absolutely. I'm working with another company that we're looking into that, especially from an R&D perspective. I think, the strains and obviously the strains have to be brought to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I
remember as a kid, there was a lot of marijuana on the island.
Yeah.
I don't know about hemp, pero había una cantidad de marihuana en la isla que era all over the place.
So it's been hidden, now it's out in the open, right?
And it grows very well and it's very strong.
Well, and that's exactly, that's exactly what we need to understand, right? So a strain from Colorado, when it goes to Puerto Rico, if it's not maintaining the same environment, it dies.
Yeah.
So, we need to do that type of experimentation as to what are the strains that are going to sustain the climate of it being in the tropics. Of course, you have the indoor.
And grown in clay.
Of course, you have the indoor, and there are people that have, big hangars of activity. But there's also the ones I visited the last time I was in Puerto Rico last month. I visited una finca in Lajas, and it was fascinating to see what they're doing, what are they exploring, how they are able to understand how the strains are and the different type of strains are developing. And the good thing is that there's an element of the academic side of Puerto Rico that is very interested in pursuing that. The former Secretary of Agriculture, Carlos Flores, is my cousin, and he's the one who basically opened up the market for hemp. So we're developing he's back in Mayagüez. In Mayagüez is the University of Puerto Rico out of Mayagüez.
One of the biggest universities, right?
It's one of the top engineering colleges across the USA. People from the States, from major companies, DuPont. Actually, my sister is a chemical engineer. She's one of the ones that's decided to stay.
My sister. She works for Baxter Chemical, right?
What, my sister works for DuPont, so they're
the same field.
Or
same arena.
But listen to that, women.
Yeah.
Your sister, my sister, chemical engineer. That's amazing.
Mindy, it's incredible the power that the women are producing or delivering on the island.
Yes, indeed.
My sister belongs to a organization, maybe your sister does, the Women Industriales, las Mujeres Industriales de Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, they're phenomenal brain power.
Very, very much indeed.
Very impressive.
Absolutely. I mean,
look at you.
Well, I'm doing por un granito de arena. But think about also the legacy families of Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. The ones that have done cement, construction, ¿cómo se llama? El ron. They have been expanding for many, many years, but now they're they're embracing the solution. They're embracing the people that are coming to Puerto
That's
Rico.
badass. That's
Do you
cool.
remember? Do you remember? It's really cool. I'm going to tell you why. Remember when in many instances, when if you were a Puerto Rican that were born or raised in New York or anything like that, there was a clash with the islanders,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah. I remember because when I went from New York to Puerto Rico to live,
Right.
it was like, oh, el
Right.
gringuito.
Exactly. That's not longer the case.
Yeah.
It's not longer the case. It's amazing. It's just a beautiful feeling. And now, I mean, it wasn't by the diaspora. What we all did when we were out here helping out and all the cases,
Mhm.
remember, you and I, we were pulling cases
Yeah, that's true.
of and in the parking lot, and we were able to send the stuff. You sent some of the stuff,
Well,
and then through the foundation, Ricky Martin Foundation.
I
we
have to
also
tell you,
took the
Mindy,
stuff.
I haven't said this. Thank you publicly. Thank you. Because post Maria, the island was decimated by the hurricane. Um, but Mindy was one of those people that her and her colleagues literally put it together a machine that received, not only took in volunteer goods and all kinds of services, but they were responsible for marshaling out and distributing to the island when it was really almost impossible to get on the
It
island,
was
right?
impossible.
Hundreds and thousands of pounds of food and consumables that was so desperately needed for the island. And I will tell you, as a person who flew there, one of the first people to arrive on the island from South Florida with goods, I saw the need and the benefit of the medical supplies that you guys were sending. Mira, me estoy erizando. I'm getting chills because I can't say thank you enough. You were able to help a boatload of people. And for that, I am eternally grateful, Mindy.
Thank you. And you were, you are the center of everything, and it was a village. It took
Well,
a lot of people to do it, and I'm very grateful for those that participated and put it together. But it was a village. I mean, do you remember when people were arriving
yeah,
in the cars and
that was very
everything? It was
impressive.
just,
Very, very
I mean,
impressive.
it was just phenomenal. But that, and also that what happened after that, a couple of things. We were able to also help people that were coming from the island, and we were able to not only write them a check or anything
But
that
you
we
adopted a family.
right.
Give me 1 second. Tommy, how are we doing on time? We have about 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So you adopted, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You adopted a family when nobody would adopt them. And now the
I
young
love
lady
it.
and the family, talk to us
Oh
about
my
that.
God! Very quickly, they're doing phenomenal. Grisel Robles and
And the
Emma
baby?
and little Emma. And little Emma is now almost 4 years. She's beautiful. She's doing fantastic. So yeah, and the idea was behind adopt a Puerto Rican family was that they people don't need just a check or the handouts of somebody giving them something. They needed someone to help them navigate, and we helped them navigate how to find a job, how to get their licensing and everything. And they're doing fantastic. They were living here in Fort Lauderdale, and then they moved up to Tampa area. But they're doing great. They're
That's a
doing that.
success
I'm
story.
so proud. I'm so honored that they're part of my life. With COVID and everything, we still kept in touch. So they're doing fantastic. Really amazing.
So you know what I'm thinking, right? As you're speaking, and I mentioned about New Era Alliances, but excuse me, maybe we should make this the Latin to Latin New Era Alliance show or hour. And maybe we can collaborate on bringing more
I love to
business
bring.
opportunities and grow this conversation. Besides, it's not just Puerto Rico, it's the Caribe,
Right.
it's South Florida, the
It's
state of
entire-
Florida, the country.
It's in the entire United States. I mean, we are in very good strategic positions if you think about it from a business
Yeah.
perspective. Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, we have a large population of obviously Dominicanos, and Florida is their go-to place, right?
Yeah.
The go-to place, and they're developing presence from a business perspective, both there in the Caribbean and also here to then grow outside of Florida into the United States. This is becoming like the first hub to grow into the United States. So I think we need to definitely. I can give you a list, as you know, of people.
Well,
that we
let's
can
work
bring.
on that because I think
Absolutely.
that's uniting with here the Millers, and thank you, Michael and Grant Miller and the team at Community News. Tommy, as I said, I think that New Era Alliance, Latin to Latin, but more importantly, all of you out there that can collaborate with us,
Absolutely.
there's just incredible opportunity. Again, I can't say it enough, but more importantly, the alliances and the collaboration is desperately needed.
That's the key. And one more thing about after what happened with Hurricane Maria, we became connected. Remember that for the
Yes.
first time in a long time, the Puerto Rican community and non-Puerto Rican community that united
Yes.
with us came together. We have a chat that we continue to invest for Puerto Rico, that we continue to stay connected, to exchange ideas, etc., and look for opportunities of growth on the island and here in South Florida and to the world, to be honest with you. So it's just good things that really happening. And I'm excited. This is exciting.
This is good stuff.
Yeah.
So, Mindy, in the last half a minute that we have left, tell people who you are, how to get a hold of you, and tell them something that they don't know about you and the opportunities that are before us.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. But Mindy
could do it.
Figueroa, I'm the founder and CEO of Latin to Latin Marketing. I'm based out of Fort Lauderdale, and you can check the website l2lmarketing.com. And I am something that they don't know. Well, I took now a hobby of making candles. So I love to make candles. It really frees me up for my mind, and I just concentrate on making candles, and I gift them to my friends. So next time I bring you one.
Wow, that'll be cool. Lavender, please.
Yes, absolutely.
I've grown fond of lavender. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. This is again Robert Asencio with Mindy Figueroa. And who knows, maybe we'll call this the Latin to Latin New Era Alliance collaboration show with the Miami's community newspaper. So for all of you, please stay tuned. Drop us a line. Let us know what you're thinking, but join us on this venture. We'll thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.